Okay, so you're asking me what is unconscious bias? Well, before we talk about what is unconscious bias, let's talk about the word bias. What does bias mean to all of us? The irony is when you think of the word bias, many of us have a negative connotation towards it. In fact, what I would say is many of us have an unconscious negative connotation towards it because we think it could be a prejudice. But essentially, all the word bias means is a preference. It is a preference for a person, a thing, an individual, a country, a football team, anything at all, whatever you like. That's all it is, a preference. And then what happens when it's an unconscious bias? Well, you have that preference, but you don't know that you have that preference. So what does that mean? Unconscious bias, two simple words. So unconscious bias essentially means that you may, how does that manifest, should I say, rather than what does that mean? You may walk into a meeting and you are holding a meeting, you're a chair of the meeting, and for some reason, without you even realizing it, you give far more eye contact to one person in the group than perhaps the other four people in your own meeting. You don't realize you're doing it. It's unconscious, it is implicit. So what is unconscious bias? Unconscious bias is when you literally, and I'm doing this to show you what I mean, that quickly you jump to a conclusion about something. It could be anything at all. One example I gave you was about when you were at a meeting. Perhaps it could be when you are recruiting. You look at somebody and you have an instinctive positive or negative reaction to that individual who you are interviewing. You don't realize it. Don't forget, it's unconscious. That's the irony in this. But what you then do in your behavior and how you interview the individual is you prove yourself right. More on that later. Those are types of biases. So once again, I'm asking you to think about these two words, because without understanding these two words, we can't then explore where do we get them from, why do we have them, and what are we going to do about them. So I really want you to think, unconscious bias, what does that mean? So I walk into a room, I see something, and I instinctively think, oh, isn't that a beautiful piece of art? Or, oh, that's rather ugly, why would they have something like that? Or you find food on the table and you've never tasted the food before, but you have a reaction. Without realizing it, you choose not to eat it. The irony is, there was an experiment done in relation to food that I remember reading somewhere, where they took two groups of people. One group could not see, the other group could see perfectly well. They gave them lunch. It was absolutely delicious food. I can't remember the cuisine. But what they did is they colored the food with a strange, safe dye, I hasten to add, that made the food look horrible. All of them ate the food because they were invited to eat. Well, guess what? The people who could see, a vast number of them complained that they had some kind of physical reaction to the food. It's true, the experiment has been done. What is that about? It's your unconscious bias. Without realizing it, you know that when food looks maybe green or yellow, I don't remember the color that was in the experiment, you think, oh, I'm not going to eat that food. And then that affects your mind, and guess what? You actually have a physical stomach upset. These are so many different ways that we can show our unconscious biases. It could be a group of people. What we like to do is we like to categorize. We just categorize so it makes our life so much easier. So we look at a group of people or a country or a football team or a genre of writing that you might have read, writers, and we have an instinctive positive or negative reaction to it. These are all examples of unconscious bias. So let me just summarize one more time. What is unconscious bias? Well, you look at something or somebody or a situation, a person, a place or something like that, and without you realizing it, you don't know it, it's like that, you have an opinion. It is an implicit, instinctive opinion that you don't realize that you have. So that is what unconscious bias is.